The Government Accountability Office's newest high-risk list shows improvement in 7 areas, but strategic human capital management is one of the areas that's backsliding. Chris Mihm is Managing Director of Strategic Issues at the Government Accountability Office. Chris, you've been involved in the high-risk list for a long, long time. Why is human capital management getting worse instead of getting better?
Yeah, Francis, it's great to be with you. There's a couple of big challenges that they had this time. It's human capital went back in the leadership criteria. For 18 of the last 24 months, OPM had an acting director, and so they didn't have that top-level leadership that they needed. At least as important, OPM last year in 2020 suspended the annual human capital reviews. Now, these are the meetings that are held at the very highest level of OPM and with the agencies to talk strategically about the human capital challenges in each of the major agencies. They need to get back on track on that. It's understandable why they suspended those because of the COVID crisis, and they need to respond to that. They need to get back onto those to make sure that they have those strategic discussions that are really identifying and addressing the challenges in each individual agency.
I understand what you're saying about strategic human capital management at the broad enterprise-wide level, Chris. What I think was maybe more troubling is that as you dig into the 30 whatever there are on items on the high-risk list, there are human capital problems, there are people problems in a large number of those as well that maybe don't manifest themselves as human capital problems, but really are at the core. Is that a fair read on my part?
Well, absolutely, that's a fair read. There are 36 issues on the high-risk list, one of which is the government-wide skills gap issue. 22 of the other 35 areas, the remaining 35 areas, a human capital issue, critical skills gap is a root cause of the problem behind that high risk issue. And among those, many of those are an absence of good workforce planning that needs to take place. And so that's why those human capital reviews are so important, to make sure that we have alignment between agency goals and outcomes, the program outcomes that they're trying to achieve, and the people strategies that are in place. But until we address these both government-wide and individual agency human capital issues, we're not going to make progress overall on the high risk list.
Are those issues that can be addressed separately? Can one agency say, we get what the problem is and we need to take care of it right now? Can they do that in a silo, or do they also need the enterprise-wide changes, reforms, improvements that you're proposing that OPM undertake?
There's plenty of opportunities for both. That is, fundamentally, each agency owns its own critical skills gap and its own workforce. So the primary responsibility is within those agencies. And so, for example, one of the issues on the high risk list is the Food and Drug Administration's inspection of foreign drug manufacturing decreased in recent years, and in part because they didn't have the people with the right skills to undertake those inspections. Likewise, the drug misuse is on the high risk list, and there's an absence or a lack of qualified medical personnel to deal with drug abuse in many areas. And so those are owned by the individual agencies. Notwithstanding that, there is work that OPM can do to make sure that there's agencies have the tools and the authorities, the flexibilities, and sharing good practice across the federal government that each of the agencies can use in order to address their own individual issues.
It strikes me that OPM is at a very interesting and fortuitous time in its history, because there is now a lot of confidence about what the agency is going to look like structurally moving forward. Nobody thinks that anybody will try to do anything structurally with OPM in this administration. So for 4 years, OPM is going to be what it is. It will get new leadership as soon as the Senate confirms that new leadership to a number of positions. What would you like to see the agency be, or what would you like to see the agency represent maybe 2 years from now, Chris, to try to achieve what you're proposing that it should try to achieve?
That's a great question. There's a couple of things that are in the sense of the low-hanging fruit, as it were, for OPM. First is to restart the human capital reviews and make sure that we're having those strategic discussions between agency leadership and OPM. Now, the meetings themselves are the least important part of that. It's more what they actually represent, and that is making sure that we have that alignment between the program goals and the workforce strategies within the agencies. The second thing that they need to do is make sure that the overall personnel system within the federal government. That is the GS system, the classification system is really fit for purpose for the modern world. And there's been plenty of reviews that have been done, certainly by the GAO, the Partnership for Public Service, the National Academy of Public Administration, that have really shown that, our federal systems and processes and way in which we structure work and recruit and compensate just aren't relevant and fit for purpose for the current workforce and current workforce needs that we have today. And third, there's an opportunity for OPM to go through just the multitude of hiring authorities that are out there that agencies are using, help the agencies identify which are the ones that are best and most appropriate given a particular need, and make sure that the agencies have the tools and the knowledge in order to execute on those authorities. Those are just some of the lowest of the hanging fruit. There's plenty of other things that OPM could be doing, though.
What are the most? A lot of those things that you just listed, though, Chris, are tremendously important. Are there some that are the most important of all the importance? Are there ones that stand out among the most important things?
I think of those, the two of them are the human capital reviews or the philosophy behind those reviews, and then making sure that our classification system, the GS system, is actually fit for the type of work that we're doing today, the type of work in which we're recruiting people into government to do.
Chris Mihm, thanks very much as always.
It's my great pleasure, sir. Thank you.